My name is Elena, and I never thought the person who would try to destroy my happiness would be my own sister. Yes, the very girl I grew up with, laughed with, and shared secrets with, turned into the sharpest knife in my back. You might think betrayal comes from strangers, from enemies, from people who dislike you. But let me tell you this. Sometimes, the deepest cuts come from the people you trust most. I was days away from marrying the man I loved. My heart was full, my dreams were finally real, and I thought my sister would stand beside me, smiling, proud. But instead, she chose to stand in my way. And she didn't just try to stop my wedding. Her actions set off a storm that tore my family apart. Yet in the end, life gave me something I never expected. Something bigger than revenge, bigger than marriage itself. I inherited the family estate, and with it, the truth about everything. But let's not jump too far ahead. Let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in a large old house that belonged to my family for generations. It was grand, with creaking floors, long hallways, and gardens that seemed endless. My parents loved that house. They called it our legacy. And of course, there was me and my sister, Clara. We were close in age, but so different. I was the quiet one, the dreamer. She was bold, loud, always needing attention. People often joked that Clara was the sun and I was the shadow beside her. But I didn't mind. She was my sister, and I loved her more than I loved anything else. When I met Daniel, my fiancé, everything felt like it was finally coming together. He was kind, gentle, the sort of man who listens with his heart, not just his ears. My parents adored him. Our friends said we were perfect for each other. I thought Clara would be happy for me too, but I noticed something strange in her smile. It was too stiff, too forced, as if every time Daniel held my hand, it was her hand that felt the pain. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just stressed. Maybe she felt left out. But little things kept happening. Clara would whisper doubts in my ear. "Are you sure Daniel is loyal? You don't know what he does when you're not around." She would bring up rumors, completely baseless things about his past. And she always said it in that sly, half-joking tone, like she wanted me to laugh it off but secretly hoped I wouldn't. One evening, when I was trying on my wedding dress, Clara stood behind me and said, "You look beautiful, Elena. But beautiful enough for him?" I wonder. Her words stung, but I stayed silent. She was my sister, after all. Surely she didn't mean harm. But oh, how wrong I was. As the wedding day grew closer, Clara's behavior grew darker. She started spending more time with Daniel, too much time. She would call him, ask him for help with errands, invite him to family discussions where I wasn't present. One night, I overheard them talking in the garden. Clara's voice was soft, almost pleading. "Daniel, you don't have to marry her. You deserve better." I froze. My chest tightened. Was my sister trying to take my fiancé away from me? Daniel's reply was firm, almost angry. "Clara, stop this. I love Elena. I'm marrying her, not you. Don't ruin this." I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt shattered. Because in that moment, I realized the truth. Clara wasn't just being protective. She was trying to destroy me. The night before my wedding, disaster struck. Guests were arriving. The house was full of excitement. But then, a rumor spread like wildfire. Someone had told our family friends that Daniel had a secret, that he had been unfaithful to me. Whispers filled the air, eyes darted toward me with pity. My parents pulled me aside, their faces pale. "Elena," my mother said softly, "are you sure about this marriage? Perhaps we should postpone." I was crushed. I looked for Daniel, and when I found him, he was furious. "It was Clara," he said through clenched teeth. "She's been telling people lies about me." My hands shook. My sister, my own flesh and blood, had tried to ruin my wedding by poisoning everyone's mind. That night, I confronted Clara. I asked her why. Why would she do this to me? She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. Instead, she smirked and said, "Because you don't deserve happiness more than me." Her words hit me like a blade. I didn't know then that this was only the beginning, that what Clara did next would push me to the edge, and that fate had something far more shocking in store. Because within weeks, I would not only be fighting for my marriage, I would be standing as the unexpected heir to our family's entire estate. And that inheritance would change everything. The morning of my wedding should have been the happiest day of my life. The sunlight streamed through the curtains, the air smelled of fresh flowers, and the sound of guests gathering in the garden filled the air. But behind the smiles and the music, there was tension. Whispers still lingered about Daniel's supposed betrayal. I could feel the weight of every pair of eyes on me, watching, waiting, doubting. I tried to ignore it. I told myself, this is my day. Nothing can ruin it. But Clara had other plans. Just before the ceremony, when I was in my wedding gown, Clara walked into the room. She looked stunning in her bridesmaid dress, her hair perfect, her makeup flawless. For a moment, I almost believed she was there to make peace. But then she leaned close and whispered, "It's not too late to walk away, Elena. He doesn't love you. He'll hurt you. I'm saving you from yourself." I stared at her in shock. "Clara, stop this madness. Daniel loves me." "Why are you doing this?" She smiled, a cold, bitter smile. "Because I should have been the one standing where you are. I should have had everything you're about to get." And then she walked out, leaving me trembling. The ceremony began, the guests seated under the garden arch filled with roses. My father took my hand and led me down the aisle. My eyes locked on Daniel's, and for a moment, nothing else mattered. His steady gaze told me we could survive anything. But just as the vows began, Clara stood up. "Yes, I object," she said loudly, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. The crowd gasped. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Daniel's jaw clenched. "What are you doing, Clara?" my father demanded, his face red with anger. Clara didn't flinch. She turned to the crowd. "You're all celebrating a lie. Daniel doesn't love Elena. He's been leading her on, and I can prove it." The guests erupted into murmurs. I felt the ground shift beneath me. Daniel stepped forward, furious. "This is ridiculous! Clara, stop lying!" But Clara pulled out her phone. She showed messages, edited, twisted, fabricated, messages that made it look like Daniel had been flirting with her. My heart stopped. I knew Daniel hadn't done this, but the guests didn't know what to believe. Some gasped, others shook their heads. Tears filled my eyes, but Daniel took my hand and said, "Elena, look at me. You know the truth. You know I would never betray you." And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Clara could try to poison the world, but she couldn't poison the bond between me and Daniel. I turned to the crowd and said firmly, "This is my wedding, and no lie, no bitterness, and no jealousy will take it from me." And with that, I asked the priest to continue. Daniel and I exchanged our vows, kissed, and became husband and wife. But even as the applause rose, I saw Clara storm out of the garden, her face twisted with rage. The days that followed were tense. My parents were furious at Clara. They confronted her, demanded she apologize, but she refused. She blamed me instead. "She stole everything from me," Clara screamed one night, her voice echoing through the halls of the house. "She doesn't deserve Daniel, she doesn't deserve happiness, and one day you'll all see that I'm right." I didn't recognize her anymore. The sister I had loved was gone, replaced by a woman consumed by envy. Daniel told me to let it go, to move forward with our lives. But deep down, I knew Clara wasn't finished, and I was right. 2 weeks after the wedding, Tragedy struck. My father, who had been ill for some time, passed away suddenly. Our family was devastated. The house felt emptier than ever, the air heavy with grief. But then came the reading of the will. We all gathered in the study, the lawyer sitting behind my father's old desk. Clara sat stiffly, her eyes gleaming with expectation. She was certain she would inherit the estate, our childhood home, the land, everything. After all, she was the elder sister. But as the lawyer read the will, the air shifted. "To my beloved daughter Elena," the lawyer read aloud, "I leave the family estate with the trust that she will preserve it as our legacy. To Clara, I leave a financial settlement with the hope she finds peace." The room went silent. Clara's face turned white, then red with fury. "What? No, this is a mistake. I'm the eldest. I should get the estate." But the lawyer shook his head. "This was your father's decision. It is legally binding." I sat frozen, tears welling in my eyes. I hadn't expected this. I hadn't asked for it. But suddenly, the entire estate, the house, the land, everything, was mine. And Clara had been left with nothing but her bitterness. That night, Clara stormed into my room, her eyes blazing with hatred. "You think you've won, don't you? First Daniel, now the estate. But this isn't over, Elena. I'll make sure you lose everything." Her voice was so sharp, so filled with venom that for the first time I felt real fear. I had inherited the estate, yes, but what I didn't know was that with it came not just wealth and legacy, but a battle. Because Clara wasn't going to stop until she destroyed me, or herself, and the war between sisters had only just begun. When my father's will was read and the estate was left to me, I thought the nightmare might finally be over. I thought Clara's anger would fade with time, that maybe she would accept what had happened and move on. But I underestimated the depth of her resentment. The inheritance didn't just wound her pride, it ignited a fire that seemed impossible to put out. At first, it was small things. She would show up at the estate uninvited, walking through the halls as if she still owned them. Sometimes I would find her in my old bedroom, sitting silently on the bed, staring at the walls. Other times she would stand in the garden, looking at the house with a cold, empty expression. When I asked her what she was doing, she would smirk and say, "Just reminding myself of what should have been mine." I tried to remain patient. I told her she could visit any time, that she was still my sister, that this house belonged to both of our memories. But she didn't want memories. She wanted power. She wanted control. Soon, her bitterness turned into action. She started spreading rumors in the village nearby. She told people I had manipulated our father into giving me the estate. She said Daniel had married me only for money. She even whispered that I wasn't truly my father's daughter, that I didn't deserve a single brick of the house I now owned. The worst part was that some people believed her. Neighbors who once greeted me warmly now looked at me with suspicion. Invitations to social gatherings stopped coming. I could feel the shift everywhere I went, as if Clara's poison was slowly seeping into every corner of my life. Daniel tried to comfort me. He held my hand and said, "Let them talk. The truth will outlast lies." But I could see the frustration in his eyes, too. He hated how her games were hurting us. He wanted to confront her directly, but I stopped him. Deep down, I knew Clara wanted us to lash out. She wanted us to fall into her trap. Then came the day she crossed a line I could not ignore. One evening, I returned home to find the front gate wide open. The servants were in a panic. Clara had come while I was away, and she had gone through my father's study. Papers were scattered everywhere, drawers left open, family documents thrown across the floor. Among them was the original copy of the will. When I asked her why she had done it, she looked me in the eye and said, "Because this house belongs to me, Elena, and one way or another I'll take it back." Something inside me broke that night. For so long I had hoped to mend things, to salvage even a fragment of the bond we once shared. But I realized Clara didn't want peace. She wanted war. And if I didn't stand my ground, she would tear apart everything my parents had left me. I began to notice her desperation growing. She started talking to lawyers, trying to contest the will. She knocked on doors of relatives, begging them to side with her. But every attempt failed, and each failure only made her more dangerous. One night, as I sat by the fireplace with Daniel, I confessed my fear. She won't stop, Daniel. She's not just jealous anymore. She wants to see me ruined. Daniel tightened his arm around me. Then we don't let her. We fight back. Not with anger, not with lies, but with the truth. She's destroying herself. All we have to do is stay strong. His words gave me strength. For the first time, I stopped waiting for Clara to change. I started protecting what was mine. Not just the estate, but my peace, my dignity, my marriage. But Clara wasn't finished. Her anger was like a storm, and soon it would crash harder than ever. Because when the court finally confirmed the will and officially declared me the rightful heir, Clara lost the last shred of hope she had left, and in losing that, she lost all control. What she did next shocked not only me, but the entire family. It was a move so bold, so reckless, that it nearly destroyed everything. And that was the moment I realized, if I didn't stop her, one of us would end up broken beyond repair. When the court confirmed the will and declared me the rightful heir, Clara vanished for weeks. I hoped she had finally accepted the truth, but deep down, I knew silence from her never meant peace. It meant something was coming. And it did. She returned during the estate's annual charity event, a tradition my father had cherished. The gardens were filled with families, children laughing, music playing. It was meant to be a day of light. But Clara arrived like a storm. She pushed through the crowd, climbed onto the stage, and grabbed the microphone from my hands. "This estate doesn't belong to her," she shouted. "It was stolen from me." Gasps rippled through the audience. Daniel rushed to my side, but Clara's voice only grew louder. "She's always had everything. Love, attention, happiness. And I had nothing. Now she's taken the last piece of my life." Her voice cracked, breaking into sobs. The microphone slipped from her hand and fell with a loud clang. For a moment, there was silence. Then all eyes turned to me. My heart ached. I had expected anger from her, but not this raw confession. The bitterness, the envy, the years of feeling second, it all poured out of her in that moment. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "Clara, I never wanted to fight you. I never wanted to hurt you. All I ever wanted was my sister back." For a flicker of a second, I saw regret in her eyes. A part of me believed she might finally let go, but just as quickly, she turned away. Without another word, she walked out of the garden, disappearing into the crowd. That was the last time I saw her. The weeks that followed were quiet. For the first time, the estate felt like home again. Daniel and I poured our energy into restoring it, filling it with laughter and life. The community slowly saw the truth, and the whispers against me faded. People began to remember my father's vision of this place, not as a battleground, but as a legacy of kindness and strength. And yet, not a day passes that I don't think of Clara. Sometimes, late at night, I walk through the old halls and hear echoes of our childhood laughter. Two little girls who once promised they would always stand by each other. I wonder where she is now. I wonder if she ever found peace. Life taught me something harsh. Betrayal doesn't always come from strangers. Sometimes it comes from the people you love the most. And when envy takes root, it can turn family into enemies. But life also gave me a gift. I inherited more than land and walls. I inherited resilience. I inherited the strength to stand tall against lies, to guard my dignity, and to choose love over bitterness. If my story carries a lesson, let it be this: envy can destroy, but truth endures. Family is not only about blood, it's about loyalty, kindness, and love. And sometimes the greatest revenge is not in fighting or striking back. It's in living a life so full of peace and dignity that no betrayal can erase it. In the end, Clara may have lost the estate, but I lost something far greater, my sister. And that loss will always ache. But I will carry forward, honoring my father's legacy, building a life of truth, and refusing to let hatred define me. Because sometimes, the best answer to betrayal is to rise above it.